From Radio Studio A, it's Talking Salford. Yes, welcome back for a very special episode as we bring Series 1 of the podcast to a close by looking back at some of the best moments from our first 10 interviews. But I will not be alone today on this journey, and I'm delighted to welcome Talking Salford producer Liz Theaker into the studio with me today.
Hello!
Hello, Liz. How are we doing?
It's a bit weird to be on this side.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm a bit confused, but it's fine.
We are going to do something very interesting this time. We've divvied up all of the 10 episodes of the first season, and we are going to each go through each clip and introduce them for you. But to randomise proceedings, we have a hat here, and we are going to pick episodes out of the hat. So let's get started. And Liz, would you like to go first? I'm going to shuffle the hat a little bit.
Okay.
And you're going to pick one out there for me.
A bit too. We have Matu.
Okay. So producer Akelia is going to play us a clip from that's episode 3 with the music producer Matu, and then we're going to talk about it.
Basically, it kind of got to the end of my masters, and it felt like I think there was a point in my time when I was trying to do the same thing I did at the end of my undergrad, which I was like trying to get more time.
Yeah.
And I think it mostly comes out of fear and just like fear of the unknown and just taking the jump. And so I was kind of like ready to go into a PhD and I'm the type of person that like doesn't like change. So I'm like very like, so I tried to stay behind and like do my PhD and like spend more time trying to develop my craft and maybe go into lecturing, and he basically told me to like not do that and to like go and experience the world for a bit and try and actually make it, because that's what I wanted to do really. Like I really wanted to go out and make it and like be a big producer and work with loads of artists, and I think he felt like if I didn't try and do that fully wholeheartedly, then it wouldn't happen, or I would like regret it, and I just wouldn't have the time, because I think in my brain I figured that it would for some reason be easy, but like obviously PhDs are even more difficult than masters, so, and lecturing is like difficult as well, so like I don't think I would have I think he was completely right.
Okay, so I met a couple of months before we did this interview. He came to do a masterclass with the pop music and recording students, and I heard him tell his story for the first time then. And while I then interviewed him for a piece for the university a few weeks after, again this came up about this idea that he was going to give up on his dream. He was coming to the end of his time at uni. He had done his masters, and he was a bit nervous about doing his masters beforehand, and he was really nervous around leaving. And I think as a former student myself, and yourself as a recent former student, Liz, we all have that crossroads moment when things come along and you get a few different routes that you could go down, and he ended up going down the right route. And I just that clip sums up that episode to me, because he's someone that's gone on to big success, but he really, really was wondering if that was the right thing for him.
Yeah, I think that was a big part of his journey, and like you said, it was the highlight of like that episode, especially for our audience as well. And as a recent student, like from my experience, I was going to go and do my masters. And I decided against that. And I think that's the best decision, because I honestly think I would have hated it, if I'm being honest.
Okay, yeah.
But I don't really know what I'd have done my masters in, and I might do it in a few years. But as of right now, I know I made the right decision, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, he's so humble. He doesn't act like he's a big star or anything like that, but that story just keeps coming back to him whenever he talks about his career, because obviously when you leave university, you have all of these concerns about going into the wide world, and he was going into the music industry, which is really hard to find your feet quickly, and that's just from that you just get how the impression that his lecturer made on him, that he still comes back and still he's still really good friends with Philip Bressenden, who was the lecturer. And it's one of those things where it's just very clear that You learn so much at university, but there's decisions you make then which are such a big thing then when it comes to leaving.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a scary point when you get to that last leg of uni, I think, and making those decisions and choosing that point. Yeah, it's such a scary time. I feel like I've only just come out the other end of it, so it's really hard to talk about in that sense. But yeah, you feel like the world, that's it, uni's cut off, that's it, what do I do now? And I think he puts it into perspective there that you might feel like you're taking the easy route, or you might be given that option, or you might be chose in a difficult industry like the music industry to go, maybe I'll just not. But he didn't, and look where he is now.
Yeah, no, it's a great lesson. And a really, really great interview, that one. Not to kind of toot my own horn or anything, but that was a good, nice, fun one to do. So, Liz, can you shuffle the hat for me, please?
Yes. Audio listeners, ASMR.
This is great. All right, okay. Right. So next up, Luke Davies. Okay, so Luke was episode 9. All about Stranger in My Family, the BBC documentary he did. So, producer Akelia, let's have episode 9, please.
I think he started to piece together what I was saying and just said it outright. And then I was like, well, yeah, but it doesn't change anything. And I said it's going to be okay. But it's just difficult. It's in a way that I found that the hardest, because it felt like the roles had reversed a little bit, which I did understand, because it's a very tricky position for all of us, and people deal with things so differently. But when it's your parents, you're a bit like, but what do we do then? And no one knows what to do, so you're kind of like, well, right, and then you're trying to do something. It's just this weird power dynamics flipped on the head sort of thing. And so, yeah, for a long time it was difficult, but they never shied away from it.
So I was looking at Luke's episode, which I feel like we all really enjoyed having Luke in the studio, and I watched the documentary twice, once before the interview and once after, and the question I was asking was, what about Gary? What about his dad that's raised him? So I kind of picked this clip because, I could have picked lots from that segment where he's talking about his dad. But we got this insight into, how that interaction happened, because you don't really see much of him in the documentary. No. And yeah, I liked having that side, and that's why I picked it as one of my best bits, because it was us getting another side of the story and us seeing a little bit further into what's on the screen.
Yeah, Stranger in My Family is a documentary on BBC iPlayer now, it's Luke's story of his DNA test, which he found out that his someone else said that his father wasn't his birth father, and he goes on this big voyage of discovery to track down his real birth father. But one of the things that the documentary doesn't go into so much detail on, as you say, is his father Gary and the impact it has on that. And it was one of the things that I had to ask him about when we sat down for that interview, because in the documentary you just spend the whole time thinking there's a lot of time with his mum, but his dad, it's like, just the emotions, the history. It's such an interesting idea to think how can the father and son move forward after that kind of moment where everything that Luke knew about his family was changed forever after that point. You're right. I think it's a fantastic clip that showcases that episode well. He was such a nice guy, and he had so much about him. But as a recent father myself, I got emotional talking to him about that, because it's just the most eye-opening part of the story, as you say, is his relationship with his father and what happened afterwards.
I don't think there were very many dry eyes behind the glass in that episode, to be honest with you. He was such a lovely guy, and he was so positive and inspirational as well at the same time. So to see him from this journey that he's been on, and now, he has his production company and everything, he's such a great person. So yeah, I just had to pick that clip because that was the standout for me after sobbing twice at the documentary. An emotional wreck.
Yeah, do watch the documentary if you haven't had the chance to watch it. It is it's a phenomenal piece of filmmaking. Okay, Liz, we're up next with another one. So shuffle.
Okay. That's the label. Timothy Cho.
Oh my god, wow. From emotion to emotion. Okay, producer Akelia, let's have Tim Cho, episode 5.
I couldn't attend school from age 10, but when I came to this country, the pen and paper available. And this is one of my obsession until today. In every single of my pocket have a pen.
You have a pen.
And I have over 5,400 pens on my desk. It's about habits collect. But that pen and paper and with democratic values and perspective, it has empowered me and it has encouraged me to learn more about it. So if I understood that pen and paper, I was able to learn about it, then politics or any subject what I chose, probably it couldn't stop me, because I already believed in myself in it, and I was able to stand against it and fight it. But that means I also wanted to learn about the knowledge of the system, why there are 25 million, and why there are many of those countries people are persecuted, why they can't talk about it, why they can't express freely like we do, or born with crime like in North Korea. That's not the United Kingdom have that kind of systems. So one thing, the basic perspective from that moment I understood in the UK was pen and paper.
Pen and paper was a symbol for you. Oh God, just hearing his voice. First of all, there were so many options I could have chosen with this one. But I think that clip shows why Tim is probably the most unique of all our guests today. He was homeless, persecuted, unable to know anything about his own country and the wider world, and yet he's thrown himself into a position to try and make other people's lives better. He's an absolute model of inspiration, and you can feel the emotions and his passion for what he does in that clip.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there could have been plenty of clips, and we all came out of Tim's episode like, wow, because his whole journey and his story from North Korea to where he is now, it's not something you hear every day, and you don't get that look into that world because it's very, it's blocked off. And it is quite emotional when you hear him talk about the importance of a piece of pen and paper, because it's something. I mean, I've got a bag full of pens and a book full of paper right now, and he sees that as like the Holy Grail, like the thing. It's really quite emotional.
No, absolutely. I think, and he talks so much in the podcast about love. More than even just for me, as a man speaking, you don't hear men openly talk about love the way Tim Cho talks about love. He talks about it in a way which makes it so engaging, so real. And I love doing that interview with him, and we've stayed in touch since. And he's such a lovely man. And yeah, I do look at pen and paper very differently after doing that interview.
Yeah, I agree. It was such a powerful statement that he made that kind of, it took me back in the gallery. Yeah, he was brilliant.
Fab. Is it my go next? I can't remember.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, it's mine. Right, okay. All right. Shake it up for me. Okay.
There you go.
Right, okay. Whew, all the emotional ones out of the way.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Is there any more emotional ones? No, I think we might be a bit
Those are the
safe.
heavier ones.
Yeah, those are heavy ones.
Yeah, heavier ones. Okay, Zoe King, episode 6.
Yeah, we were like locked in an actual bubble. We were caged in, barriered into this space on a reservoir in Wales. So all of our food was cooked within the area. We lived in these bunker bins, which are like shipping containers that have been pumped out with a bed and a toilet and a bathroom in it. And yeah, we lived there. We never left. We used to get our shopping delivered the other side of the fence, and I used to wear a hazmat suit and gloves and wipe it all down, and then that would be our shopping deliveries that got delivered that way. And it was a crazy world, but it was amazing because we spent 24/7 together, and we really got to know each other, and that was what was really nice about it. Like, I've made friends there that are my friends for life.
It's a great way, I guess, to start your first job, having to cope with that kind of environment and just cracking on. Hazmat suits.
Yeah. That's the level we were at the time, because this was before even like the masks were getting introduced and stuff. So we didn't know, and we didn't want the shoot to get shut down, and we were doing everything we could. So I actually wore a hazmat suit in a caged off little barrier area.
So this clip is, I think, quite a perfect illustration of just the kind of environment that Zoe was walking into after graduation. The idea that they had to wear hazmat suits to collect their food and shopping on this film set, because this was around April-May 2020, where it wasn't really known quite how easy it was to catch coronavirus or how you could protect yourself from it. Really insightful, really eye-opening, and like her episode is all about her persistence to build a career for herself. And then this clip shows that this was her first gig, but she went straight into it out of graduation, and she kind of has never looked back and toured the world since. But it is really insightful to listen to, just hearing how just hard it was right from the off.
Yeah, it is. It's such a... It feels like a different world we lived in
Absolutely.
2020. So to be working in that industry where it is a hands-on, it's a massively like... You are working around people all the time, and these things are important because, you know what, everyone watches telly. Everyone not needs, but thrives off it. You know, you come into work, you talk about Bake Off. So having these people behind the scenes being able to entertain the public, it's such a huge thing, and it's not something that I think got talked about as being like key workers.
No, it wasn't. It really wasn't. And there was a massive boom in TV across the UK that we're still going through since, because so much stuff had to be shut down around COVID, and now that industry is pumping billions into our economy, and all those workers, as you say, they were key workers. They were at that time, I guess you could say, they were risking their lives to make content for people to consume from the safety of their own homes. So it was a big thing to go through. And I think it's quite an aspirational thing, I think, for Zoe to look back on and think that she was part of that shit, that she was involved in giving us all the content that we really wanted at the time of the pandemic. But I mean, we're still seeing just more and more content out every day, so it hasn't really stopped since that time.
No, it's not. And I think with a lot of the people that we've interviewed across the series as well, there's always been that question of COVID.
Yeah,
it always gets brought up, and it's more like the impact. So a few of the documentary makers and stuff we've had have said, well, it got pushed back because of COVID. It got, like, we couldn't do this and that. It's been a huge impact on the entire media industry, and it's something that we've quite closely followed, really, throughout this series.
Yeah. No, absolutely no. Yeah, it's had a massive impact, and let's see what more stories we can bring back to the surface. So if that was me, I think it's your turn.
Okay.
So 5 episodes in now, so what this will be the 5th one.
Short supply.
Short supply. Okay. All right, producer Akelia, can we have episode 2, please?
We weren't the best.
Love the honesty.
Yeah, we weren't the best first year students. However, we did pull our fingers out for the other 2 years that we were here.
I think there's a powerful story in there we weren't the best students, full stop. But I think you don't have to be the best student to, kind of find your rhythm and your niche and to have a career. I think there's something in that I enjoy, and maybe this isn't the platform for that, but who knows.
I think when you're at university, though, you're at the age where you're kind of coming to terms with who you are as well. Like, you're 18 at the youngest, kind of finding your feet, that freedom for the first time. You're exploring who you are, as well as obviously doing your course. And I think it's important to remember that. So yeah, we weren't great students, but we're still here now.
So that was Short Supply, which was our first duo recording, which was quite early on in the series as well, and it had its challenges having 2 people. So it's made up of Molly and Rebecca, and they were full of energy. They were a formidable pair. They were honestly. I watched back that episode and I just laughed because they're so entertaining to watch.
Yeah, they are. They're great company.
The reason that I went with that clip as one of my best bits is because the way they speak about it is probably a message that should be there for students now, whether you're going to first year, second year, third year, masters. It was such a powerful message of, you can do it.
Yeah.
It's about determination, and it shows you where they are now as this art duo that's now like helping students in the industry. And yeah, I just thought it was the standout bit for me where I went, yeah, that's nice. And I remember listening to it when we were there. I mean, we needed that, you know.
I think their honesty was lovely to have. I mean, yeah, so they were very early on in the production process. We were back over at the New Adelphi. And right from when they walked into that studio, they just had such good banter with them. It was my second interview in the pod, but I was so at ease talking to them. I just let them talk, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then they had those moments where they were so articulate, so passionate about their industry. They just know it like the back of their hand. But they also were very candid around. It doesn't like how you are at university does not define you post-graduation. And they have made a great world for themselves in the arts sector, and I've said this a few times today already, but they are an inspiration. They really have helped shape art here for the betterment of all kind of young up-and-coming artists, and they are such great company. They're so easy to hang out with.
So much fun.
They're great fun. It makes me gives me palpitation thinking about how it was to actually do a duo interview, because a lot of the time I was just trying to chip in and just trying to have my voice heard with them. But they were a great laugh to have.
They were a good pair to have for a duo. I think you need someone a pair that are going to bounce off each other and really, really just take it in their stride. And I think we were quite worried before we did that episode because it was two people. It was a different, like, working out how we do the camera setup and the mics and everything. And they were just the perfect people to really see how we could pull that off.
Yeah, no, great example there, and definitely a couple to look out for in the future, I have to say. Right.
It's your go.
Okay, my go. Let's do some shuffle. You going to do shuffling for me?
Okay, have a mix up.
Yep. Okay, all right. Let's go, so... Ooh, our most recent interview was Kelly Phillips, episode 10. God, I've nearly exhausted all mine here. Akelia, episode 10, please.
So he called me. I called him straight away. He gave me a phone interview and then said, "I'll give you a trial for a month. You need to start tomorrow."
Wow.
So I literally had that decision, which actually didn't even feel like a decision. So I packed up my little Fiat Uno, which I had at the time, cancelled all my plans to go away for the summer. And the next morning I drove to Devon and started my job as a assistant accountant or trainee assistant accountant on my first TV job.
That's crazy that it happened so quickly after graduation, but that is this industry, isn't it? It's you get the call, you get an opportunity, you've got to take it. Has that been your experience over the years?
Absolutely. I think, if I hadn't taken that opportunity, I may never have had another one. So I just felt I just had to go for it. And actually that accountant, he kept me as his assistant for over 2 years. So he took me from job to job to job and trained me up until I was ready. And I got my first job as a production accountant. So he was also very nurturing with me. So it was like right place, right time. So I'm a big believer, in fate, I guess, but also in you have to grab every opportunity that gets given you in life, because you never know when the next opportunity will come along.
So that's Kelly there, and Kelly was probably one of the more career-driven people I think I've ever met. She's Netflix's head of UK finance and strategy and also Europe, Middle East and Africa. So she's got a massive role at a very prominent streamer. And she came to Salford in the 90s. Her head was like, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work in the film industry and I'm getting an accounting degree. and I'm going to absolutely make my way in as quick as possible. And in that clip, she talks about how she was given an opportunity straight after her exams. I think that the next day after her exams, where they basically said, here's an opportunity, come down to this set, but you have to come like now. And she had planned to go away to Spain with her friends that summer for a couple of months. And she was like, right, I'm going to cancel that and go and do this. And I wonder how many students leaving uni that like the day after they were finished doing all their studying and exams would take that opportunity.
It's you. I think would I?
Yeah,
you
see,
know, it's
it
that
makes
question.
you think.
I feel like it depends on the opportunity, and she sounds like she's such a career-driven person, and yeah, she knows what she wants.
Yeah.
If she didn't take that opportunity, she might not be where she is now, and in such a huge role.
Well, that's what she says. Yeah.
Like, yeah, and especially in the media industry as a whole, if you're not grabbing opportunities and like doing everything you can, you're not doing everything you can. You know, you've got to work. It's outside the classroom work.
Mm-hmm.
You have to put in the effort. You have to put in the time. You have to do the rubbish jobs. Otherwise, you know, cancel that holiday.
Yeah.
Because you don't know where you're going to be in this role 10 years down the line.
I think the theme that we talk about a lot in this series, in terms of the media industry, in terms of film, we go in deep depth through all of it, through all the people we've interviewed, but the same thing keeps coming down, like you need grit, you need determination, you've got to take every opportunity that comes your way, because it's so competitive, but obviously all of our people have had great success so far, but they really worked hard for it. And what I love about that is it shows a message to all the people that are either listening or watching this, that are either students or newly alumni, or maybe you've seen this and you think, oh, I want to come and study at Salford and I want to know more about what the university's about. The people that come through Salford are hard-working people. They really give their utmost to get in the career that they want, and it's something which I love that we've championed so far with the series. We are bold thinkers here in Salford, that's for sure. But also, this is Kelly opening the part of the film industry that we don't talk about. The finance side of it.
It's not a job that I'd heard of. It's not a job I'd think about, and I probably watch Netflix every day.
Yeah.
It's not a role that has ever crossed my mind that obviously is there. Someone has to be in charge of finance when they do all these big elaborate shows.
Absolutely.
But it's not, and she wanted to do that. Mm-hmm. She knew where she wanted to be. It's just crazy to me because the rest of the world don't even know what she does.
No, I know. It's the finance side it's not heard of enough. But if you do want to hear more, do go back and listen to that episode, because Kelly's got some great advice for you there. Okay, I think it's my turn now, yeah?
No, I think it's mine.
Oh, okay.
I think you pulled Kelly out.
Yes, I did pull Kelly out, right. Okay.
Try to get extra turns.
Stress of doing this, honestly. Right, okay, here we go. Come on, we got...
All the pressure's going to end up on me now.
Yeah, it's a lot of your clips left.
We're going back to episode 1.
We're going to 1.
With
wow, okay.
Nick Ransom.
Yeah, so I came back to university at the beginning of my second year and spoke to the university GP and said, oh, look, this might be a thing. And so that was the August, the Pride, and then it got to, I think, February when I was diagnosed. And a lot of people wait like 5 or 6 years. So I don't know whether it was for the fact I was through the university or whatever. But yeah, I got diagnosed in Chester, and my mum came all the way up and supported me. And it was a case where it was a blue skies day, and had a sort of 2-hour discussion with the psychologist, and she said, you're autistic. And I think a lot of people when they're younger have oh my goodness, I'm different, this is a disaster to some degree. But for me, it put in perspective everything that I'd achieved, the fact that I was living now 4 hours away from home, the fact that I was kind of living independently at university. And it did give me a massive perspective and a confidence boost, really. And I'll never forget that day where, getting the train back from Chester and it being the most beautiful day, and it felt like a massive new chapter. It felt like my life had been split in two, really.
So that was Nick. So a bit of context on Nick, if you've not seen that episode. By the way, he was a great way to open our series, wasn't he? He was a brilliant start for what Talking Salford is. So Nick is a journalist as well as a neurodiversity consultant. And in that clip, he's talking about being diagnosed as autistic, which is something that happened in his second year of uni. And I picked that one. It stood out to me because he's such a determined person. And I mean, we've spoke about this a lot, about the determination of our interviewees as a whole, but his positive outlook on everything and how he talked about it being like a new beginning and blue skies. And it was just so lovely. And I think for people that are neurodivergent, it's nice to have. So I feel like there can be negative press around it sometimes, and people feel quite difficult about it. And he's such a inspirational person for that platform because he sees it as he said it's like his superpower. I believe in the episode, he described it as his superpower, and I loved it. I thought it was great.
I think, Nick, as you say, he is a champion of people that are neurodivergent. He was so happy to be involved with this. As our first guest, we were like, how's this really going to go? Are we going to find our footing here? Again, we were over at the New Delphi. We were trying to find our way around with the equipment. And Nick walks in, and he's sunshine, rays, and positivity. And he had to take a call at the time from another job that he was potentially getting. So he's a right grifter in terms of really trying to find work constantly. And I've followed a lot of his work since, and he does do lots of reporting on the neurodivergent community. He's really passionate about it, and it's great to see those stories keep being told. And he's such a figurehead for that with the media group as well that he runs. He was so easy to talk to, and he really is a great Salford grad because not only was he so good at articulating his own experience, but he shows just how much the university helps people that go through that experience, and how if it hadn't been raised whilst he was here, he might not have been able to find out about his superpower early on, really. And he hasn't let it define him. He's very much used it to kind of champion himself and kind of really champion others. I love listening back to that episode with Nick because it's always a delight to go back to the start, but it's particularly special with him.
Yeah, and like we said, he was just to start the series with someone like Nick. When we were all a bit nervous, we were in a new studio, we had a new setup, we were all putting something brand new that we'd worked on together. It was nice to finally go, actually, wow, this is what this is going to be.
Yeah, no, he was a great person to start with. Are we down to our last 2 or 3 now? I've got 1 left. How many
I've got 2.
Left? You got 2. Okay, 3 left. Right. Okay. Shove it for me.
There you go.
Okay. So, up next, Amber Hack, episode 4.
Also on our own community to kind of understand a bit more about the powers of kind of getting into this industry. I don't personally, and this might be seen controversially, put everything on broadcasters and editors and commissioners. You know, yes, we need to get better at creating spaces for people to come, but I think within our own community, still to this day, like I was having my hair dyed 3 weeks ago and I was talking to the hairdresser there who was South Asian, and she was asking me about my job. Mm-hmm. And she said to me, oh, my daughter wanted to be a journalist, but I didn't let her. And then I'm like, okay, I'm quite intrigued. Why? And when she unpacked it, it was because she was worried about the kind of dangers of, you know, her daughter doing that kind of thing and getting hate and getting... But actually, as I asked her kind of more questions, because her daughter is a beauty influencer now. Okay. And I kind of said, for you, what's the difference? Because to me, that's still exposure. It's still, you know, public facing kind of thing and putting yourself out there. And it's so interesting. I mean, she didn't quite phrase it like this, but I got the sense that it was like, in this job, you have a voice and you're questioning things and you're pushing back on things and you're maybe being difficult. They might perceive that as, even though it's not, you know, it's chasing the truth. Yeah. And that came to the heart of it.
So that's Amber, who she's a documentary maker, she's a DJ, and she's a journalist. I liked that clip because I like her episode theme was a lot of talking about diversity in the industry. We did go into talking about a documentary hometown, but again, it stemmed back to this topic of diversity. and she spoke so passionately about it and really gave a different insight.
Absolutely.
And I picked that clip because it is showing how she spoke about how it's like a cultural like opinion on the media.
Yeah.
They're almost scared of it because of publicity, and I just thought that was such an interesting like thing to bring up. I was really fascinated when I listened back. I thought, why didn't that even like, she spoke about it so much within her episode, but yeah, that stood out to me, that wouldn't let her daughter be a journalist, but she can be a beauty influencer.
Yeah.
My mum would be very different on that topic. She'd rather me be a journalist than a beauty influencer.
I think that there's definitely cultural expectations that play into that, and I think what Amber says a lot through the episode is around, because we do talk about it, is around why people in the Asian and South Asian community don't necessarily put themselves forward for roles in the media, and I think Amber kind of alludes to this. The scrutiny, the chance that you are putting yourself on display a bit, not quite in a sense as a beauty influencer, but you are speaking, and as a beauty influencer, you don't tend to, as you say, use the voice. You tend to just project image. And journalist is about voice. It's about what you have to say a lot more, and how people interpret what you say. It doesn't necessarily matter also what broadcaster or organisation you're working for. If you're seen on camera or if you're writing something, you're associated with that. That's your piece of work, and that comes with your identity. And a lot of what we talk about in the episode is how there's been a lot of change in this area in terms of getting South Asians into more prominent roles in media and leadership. But there's a lot more we can do. There's a lot of good organisations that are doing a lot of good work in this area, and Amber is one of the key people that is striving to find more opportunities for those around her. But it's something which we can't stop talking about, and that's what I loved about hearing that clip was that she challenged it.
Yeah, she challenged it within her own culture, and yeah, it is important to look at things from both sides. And I mean, that's the role of a journalist, isn't it? You have to look at things from both sides. So yeah, it stood out to me out of her episode a lot. Yeah,
Absolutely. Right, down to the last two.
Ooh, exciting.
Right, okay, so it's one each, I think.
Okay, yeah, it is. I'm on one. I keep grabbing the label. I forgot two. No, I've got one. Oh, this is good. Right, Kai. So this is yours.
Episode 7.
You know, going through the education system myself, all over the world, and in this country especially, and also my employment, I look back and I notice how underrepresented I was in leadership positions, and that's something that I want to try and change as much as possible, because if people like myself don't see themselves represented in certain roles or different roles, they won't aspire to it. And that's not because they don't think they can, but because they don't think it's for them.
I see.
So I did a lot of work with schools and colleges in the area just to try and be visible to people like me, to say, look, you too can be here. Salford, you know, the local community here, one of the things that I noticed is how inaccessible they feel Media City is. It's something over there, not something for them. So we work in local schools just to bring them in and just spend the day and just see, you know, what is it like to be a software engineer, or to see some of the other amazing job titles that exist. Software engineer is an obvious one, but it's a big passion of mine. And, you know, having 3 kids of my own, and they tell me stories that sometimes break my heart or sometimes melt my heart, depending on what the story is. But either way, it's just how prominent it is at their age, the issues. When I was 12, 13, diversity and inclusion, no idea. I just went through it, and now I look back, I can see the consequences of the lack of it, if that makes sense.
So that was Kai Ojo. He's the CEO of Planisware UK and Republic of Ireland, which is a software company. And when we set up every interview for this series, I had a chat with each of them to kind of see, right, what is their story? Who is this person? Let's not focus on the job so much, let's focus on the person, was kind of the mantra that I took to it. And with Kai, I found very early on that he is such a good person when he talks about diversity and inclusion, because he takes an approach to it that you don't really see a lot in other organisations, where it's about looking beyond the facts, the numbers that you can kind of compile together in annual reports. It's about how people perceive themselves, how they perceive their leaders, how they perceive the organisation around them. And what we hear, in this clip is, you've got to see people that look like you, that talk like you, that sound like you in positions of leadership across an organisation, so that everyone feels that they're getting the opportunities that others are. And Kai, he's really passionate about it, and he says earlier in the interview that a workplace will be better run and a better place to work if you have people that are diverse and inclusive, because you've got in his words, a melting pot of creativity which can't be matched. And if you're constantly employing or promoting people from all the same backgrounds and walks of life, you are not going to get that real creative thought that is spread out throughout your organisation.
Yeah, and what I think I took from that clip is the line he said about Media City, because obviously our campus is here.
Yeah.
With people saying that it feels almost unachievable to come to Media City. Why? It's like now the hub in the north of media and creativity, really. It should have its doors open to everyone.
Yeah.
So we should be encouraging that in every sense, in every being of what we do. And I think as a university, we do that. And we do, we're quite a cultural university. We're accepting of everyone, and we make a big thing of that.
Yes.
So I think that's important. Hopefully it brings those people to Media City, having us here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's very well said. Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything further on that one. Right, okay, let's do the last one, which I think this is yours, but...
Yeah, you're going to pull it out just for the
I'll pull it out just for the effect. So our last one today, and for the series, is Matt Cuthbert, episode 8.
Yeah, to be fair, I think there's something, and you'll hear them say it all the time, there's something different about sort of this group of staff and players. So since Serena came in, like, there was just a big change. It happened very rapidly, but like they've sort of managed it really well, and you sort of have no worries really that like they're ever going to lose. It sounds daft, but the players they're so calm and confident that actually even within the final, and we were 1-0 down to Spain, there was still a part of me that was like, no, we're going to bring this back. Like, we've done it before. Quarter final of the Euros, we were losing to them. We sent Millie Bright up top and managed to snatch an equaliser to then take it to extra time. So there's sort of a never say die attitude.
Absolutely.
So if you can't tell, Matt works with the Lionesses. He's a performance coach. I mean, you know that I was very excited for this episode.
Yeah, you're a big fangirl for that.
Yeah. I love the Lionesses. I follow football. And, yeah, I was so excited to be able to talk to someone who was in it and seen a lot of this squad now up and come in the industry, in the team. And now they're international, heroes for a lot of young women as well. This was also our first recording online, I'd like to point out, which was showing, as a podcast, we can go further and we're going to be bigger. I just wanted to point that out in there. But I chose this because it is the standout clip for the thing. Being able to speak to someone who's had these interactions with the players, Serena, see that level and why it means so much women's football and how much it's grown. Yeah, I mean, I could talk about it forever. I could, because I love it all, but yeah.
So that we recorded that shortly after the Women's World Cup final, which Lionesses sadly didn't bring home. But the passion that was coming from Matt was so clear that we are at a big moment in women's football, and it was so good to have him on there because he can talk through, as you said, he could talk through all the players that were then in the starting 11 of that team that went out in Australia. And he shows just the growth of that game is really moving on to the next level. We talked a lot about strength and conditioning and how that has become a feeder for so many sports clubs in the area as well. It was our first guest from School of Health and Society. He is really chatty, really lovely guy, very easy to talk to. Yeah, we used our online platform Riverside for the first time with that one. And I just felt so at home talking to him. As you say, we could never have stopped that interview. We could have just kept going and going, because the stories he has, the access he's had, and the passion he has for the game really came across well.
Yeah, and can we just point out, so he did his undergrad here, then he did his master's, and then he's gone on to do his doctorate here at Salford. Yeah. So he's been with us all the way through, and now he's on this big platform with, you know, the women's England team, which is insane. And he was, like we said, we had to bring it to an end, really, didn't we? We had to force ourselves.
Didn't really want to end it.
No, and it was a slightly longer episode than we thought it was going to be, but it was definitely not a difficult listen at all.
No, absolutely. So that brings us to a close with this for this very bonus episode. Liz, how have you found it?
Good. Yeah, it's been nice. It's been nice to recap on everything we've achieved in the first season. You know, we launched it we were starting filming in April.
Yep.
We were doing taster sessions slightly before that, and yeah, it's nice to see that what we've achieved on the big scale.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for helping me walk through it today.
It's all right.
So that ends series 1 of Talking Salford, and as Liz said, look, it's fair to say we've grown and come a long way from doing our first demos back in April this year. Rest assured, we're going to be back in the new year with series 2, and we have lots of exciting ideas and interviews that we're working on, and look forward to bring to you. You may hear from us before then, but if not, you'll just have to wait a few months before we are back on your podcast feeds. But before we go, I just also wanted to thank everyone that has made Talking Salford happen and has helped along the way. Firstly, to all of the series producers, to Liz here, to Akelia Hewitt, Maria Dickinson, Rowena Grant, and Tom Walters for doing a great job behind the glass and keeping things ticking over. An extended thank you to Maria as well for giving us the green light to making this podcast a reality and supporting me to keep it going through the bumps along the way. Thanks to Philip Denton for allowing us to record and film in the New Adelphi recording studios where we did our first 3 episodes. To Neil Salmon for allowing us to record here in Radio Studio A. And a bigger thank you to Rick Berry as the studio technician, who has been superb at training the team up, being accommodating for all of our questions, and getting us going each and every recording in here. An extended thank you as well to Akelia as well, who also doubles up as a podcast editor as well, as being a third-year student, and who has brought fantastic passion to this project and always wanted to be involved in everything we do. Where else would we also be without our ace film editor Tom, who I should also add is also still a student here and has really shaped the vision for how this podcast looks on video. Finally, my last thanks is to producer Liz here, who right from the beginning has helped shape the podcast that you're listening to right now and loves doing it so much that she came back after graduating so she could keep working on it. From demos in the spring to co-hosting in the autumn, a big thank you to Liz. And with that, I'm going to sign us off now. So until next time, goodbye.